This is the town of Haworth in Yorkshire, in the north of England. And at the top of the steep cobbled high street is the Bronte parsonage. This house was the home of Charlotte, Emily and Anne Bronte, three sisters whose close bond and astonishing talents produced some of the most dramatic and passionate literature of the 1800s. The sisters lived here with their Irish-born, Cambridge-educated father Patrick and their brother Branwell. And it was in this small home that Charlotte would write Jane Eyre, Emily Wuthering Heights, and Anne The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. Their dramatic romances have now sold millions of copies and have been adapted into hundreds of stage plays, films and TV programmes, making them by far the most successful writing family in English literature. Haworth is surrounded by moors as bleak as any in Britain, and in the 1800s, life here was harder than we can possibly imagine. The Brontes' mother died soon after arriving at Haworth, and two sisters, Maria and Elizabeth, died when they were just 10 and 11. The surviving sisters were devastated by the loss and became inseparable, rarely leaving the isolated parsonage, as Anne Dinsdale from the Bronte parsonage explains.
What they really wanted to do was to be together at the parsonage and to write, and that's what they did.
The sisters were like peas in a pod. They had an almost symbiotic relationship. They wrote poetry and prose together sitting at this table, unconcerned by the world outside. Like most female authors at the time, the sisters didn't use their real names when they first published their work.
They published their novels under the names Currer Ellis and Acton Bell, hoping that they would be treated as writers rather than women writers.
The more they wrote, the more popular they became, and their books sold like hotcakes. Soon, everyone wanted to discover the authors' true identities. So Charlotte and Anne travelled to London by train, where they confessed their real names to their publisher, who was stunned by the revelation. But tragedy haunted the parsonage. In 1848, Branwell died, and his death was followed by Emily and Anne's within a year. Charlotte was stronger than her sisters, and she was devastated by their deaths, but she continued writing. Charlotte married a colleague of her father's in 1854, but died only 6 months later when she was pregnant with her first child. She was only 38 years old, but she was already a famous author.
She died in 1855 in this house, and 2 years after her death, a biography written by Elizabeth Gaskell was published, The Life of Charlotte Bronte, and that attracted a huge amount of interest in the Brontes' lives. People wanted to come to Haworth and see the place where the Bronte novels had been written and to see where the family had lived their lives.
There has been a small Bronte museum in Haworth since 1895. But it wasn't until 1928 that the parsonage opened to the public. Today, inside, visitors can see many of the sisters' possessions, including Charlotte's wedding dress. They can also see many of the sisters' handwritten letters and manuscripts of poetry and prose. Experts still come to the parsonage from around the world to research the sisters and their work.
Every year we get 75,000 visitors on average, and they're drawn from all over the world, from America, from Japan, from places in this country. The Bronte novels have been translated into over 26 different languages. They're read by people all over the world.
It's impossible to think of the Bronte sisters separately or away from the landscape of the Yorkshire moors. There's little doubt that it was the relationship between the sisters and their surroundings, that helped each one to produce writing that still grips and thrills readers today.